Hello, everyone. Welcome back to I See What You're Saying, the Disciplined Listening Podcast. I'm Michael Reddington, and today it is my pleasure to welcome our next guest, Ted Stephany. Ted is a sourcing and procurement expert. He is a negotiation speaker and educator. He knows that negotiated outcomes are the result of strategy, psychology, and presence. So he teaches professional negotiators to negotiate with intention, confidence, and control. And I'm really excited to have him on the show this week so he can share with us his approach, his experiences, and how we can all continue to develop as negotiators. So from a professional level, he's going to start early on by talking about the relationship between sales and negotiation. They often go hand in hand, but they are certainly not one and the same. From his very unique perspective, having been on both sides of the table, he's also going to talk about how we can all prepare to negotiate with professional buyers. He's going to talk about the importance of deal time engineering, credible ways to use anchoring to our advantage, and many, many more tips, strategies, and insights. Really excited to share this conversation with everybody this week, and very happy to have you all here with us for another episode. Thank you very much for being here again. Please, while you're here, we'd appreciate it. Just take one quick minute to like the show, subscribe to the show. Please share it with your network, and absolutely leave your feedback. We would love to hear from you. Thank you. While you're online today, please take a couple quick minutes to check out our sponsors. First, you can over to humantel.com. You can peruse their catalog, read their research, and then choose the online training program that's best for you to begin developing the skill set necessary to accurately recognize when emotions are shifting by evaluating changes in someone's facial expressions and nonverbal communication. While you're there, you can enter the code INQUASIVE25 for 25% off the training of your choice at humantel.com. For the professional interviewers, please head over to certifiedinterviewer.com. That's where you can learn everything you need to know and get all your questions answered about joining and contributing to the International Association of Interviewers, as well as qualifying for and earning your Certified Forensic Interviewer designation, all over at certifiedinterviewer.com. And finally, please check out inquasive.com while you're online today. That's where you can learn more about the programs our clients ask us to custom facilitate for their senior leaders, sales teams, HR teams, and more, as we teach them the skills, perspectives, and techniques necessary to uncover hidden value in all of their high-impact conversations. Once again, thank you for being here for another week. We really appreciate you coming back. So without further ado, I introduce to you Ted Stephany. Ted, it is so great to see you again. How are you?
Michael, I'm doing great.
Really been looking forward to this conversation. We had a chance to chat once before. Appreciate your flexibility with the scheduling. Now I'm really, really happy to dive in. And hopefully this conversation warms you up a little bit. I know you're up north and you're getting ready to shovel out once again. So hopefully we can add a little temperature to your day through the conversation. In our previous conversation, we talked about kind of the overlap, but also the differences between sales and negotiation. And I'm sure a lot of times in your day-to-day activity, I certainly see it in mine, people lump the two together. Sometimes rightfully so, sometimes not so much. So I would love to start the conversation by asking you, through your lens and expertise, what do you see as the relationship between sales and negotiation?
Yeah, it's a wonderful topic of conversation. And yes, it is downright frigid up here. Made some terrible life decisions to end up in the north. I have all the respect in the world for those on the sales side of the deal. I've been there. Now on the other side, the dark side, you might say, I see some of the best and some of the not so best sales professionals. And there is a difference. There is a difference. I like to say, a little tongue in cheek, that when it comes to sales, most of you are absolute rock stars. But when it comes to negotiation, it's more like the high school marching band. Now, let me explain. Let's take a framework, for example, like Medic or MedPick. And I see so many folks focused on that early stage of the buying cycle or the selling cycle where you want to talk ROI, you want to talk value, you are deep in the weeds with the end users on the product. Let's narrow this to say software, enterprise software, where I see a lot. You're really focused on the tools, the user's experience, and the ROI calculations. And that's great. You have to do those things. But what about the decision criteria? What about that D? What about the champion, the C? And those things are often an afterthought. Or more importantly, they're not well planned for. And what trips up a lot of sales professionals is when you get into that late stage buying cycle or sales cycle, you haven't fully prepared for the professional buyer and some of the pushback, some of the objections, and some of the nuances that are going to turn up in those negotiations.
So you talk about preparing for the professional buyer. When I think about some of the differences between sales and negotiation, I feel like often in negotiation, education, however we want to dissect that up, a ton of it is put on preparation because understanding, and we can throw out all the acronyms from all the different programs out there, but basically understanding where am I trying to go? What are my alternatives? How can I try to chop this pie up and make it work for everybody? It's important understanding that going in. And I'm making a bit of a stereotypical statement here, and I understand that a lot of people listening might go, wait, that's not me. And that could very well be true. But on a lot of sales side, folks, I feel like get into that ready, shoot, aim type mentality where just get me in front of somebody, let me start talking, and then we'll work our way through this. They might have a framework or methodology that they use, but they're building it on the fly a little bit more to speak. So to hear you say prepare for the professional buyer really resonates because the professional buyer has a ton of situational familiarity. They have lots of reps. They probably have a system that they follow. They could very well be choosing between options, which, if you just want to buy into the whole BATNA process, could put them into a position of leverage before this whole conversation starts. So, based on your experience on both sides of the house or both sides of this conversation, how do you recommend that sales folks effectively prepare for the professional buyer?
It's a great question, and there are a few ways to do it. One is to anticipate that buyer, that negotiation from the very first phone call. And the best sales professionals are talking about the process early on. They're looking beyond their shiny AI features and they're talking about, all right, I know this is going to be such a success for you and such a great fit. How can I get this into your hands sooner rather than later? Help me understand what the purchasing process looks like. Do you have a sourcing and procurement team? Great. I'd like to talk to them next. Bringing those buyers into the conversation early will alleviate 90% of the pain and help address some of those issues. At the start, you're really focused in on making the sale without actually thinking about what it will take to get the signatures on the contract. And you talk about value. Everybody loves talking about value, but you forget to talk about what every single stakeholder values, whether it's the CEO, the CIO, the CFO, or even the sourcing procurement professional. What do they value? And if you put those off too long, it's going to end up in your sales cycles just dragging out indefinitely.
And then trying to cram it in at the end, it almost feels like we're scrambling, we're rushing. It can come across, unfortunately, as even panicking. Well, wait, what about this? Who about that? And now, because we look unprepared, and to some degree we were, right? But because we look unprepared, it could cause people to question our credibility. And now our brain is literally operating differently. So we could be missing opportunities that are right in front of us because we're stressed trying to play catch up instead of playing from ahead. When you talk about the process, and my good friends Aaron and Kelly are going to make fun of me. We were co-facilitating a program together earlier this week, and one of the questions that I live and die with is, please walk me through the process.
Yeah.
and use it in all kinds of contexts and all kinds of scenarios. And it gets to the point that this week when we were teaching together, I could hear their eyes rolling every time we worked that into an example. But it's such an, like you said, it has helped me understand. It's basically the same question, but it's give people the opportunity to educate us as we go in instead of trying to just force feed the conversation. Listening equals learning. If we don't give ourselves a chance to learn, we're closing doors. We didn't even know we're in the hallway.
Yeah, that is so important. That is so important. And I love that question. When a sales representative asks me, walk me through the process, more than happy to. Not enough, ask me, frankly. And when you do that, you start the collaboration process that unlocks all of these doors. Because what if what if I hold the key to some of these doors? What if I know how to expedite your journey through this process? When you start listening to what the professional buyer says, and you do that early, you're not playing from a reactive standpoint. In fact, you're enlisting the buyer as a champion. And I'll come back to that. It's so important to ask those questions. Walk me through the process. Ted, what matters the most to you in this deal? What matters? I heard that what matters most to your stakeholders is A, B, and C. Do you think that's true? Okay, what aren't they telling me? Who are the stakeholders I haven't talked to yet? There's so much information that I might have as the buyer who sometimes operates, sometimes always operates as kind of the central hub of a wheel, if you will, corresponding with legal, biz tech, stakeholders, C-suite, and everybody in between. I might know more than what the end users, your end buyer does in terms of the overall process. So those questions are just music to my ears. Ask them and listen, truly listen. I know, gosh darn it, a lot of us are in sales because we love to talk. We're people, right? And we love the conversation. And especially in sales, you're in that sales motion. And what we fail to do a lot of times is listen. The average person is uncomfortable in what, 6 seconds of silence?
I bet it's less than that. Yeah.
Ask me a tough question and then shut up and just sit in that silence. And that can be true of either in the discovery phase or when you're deep in the pricing conversations about a tough discount or something. Sit in that silence and listen.
For any number of reasons, but if for nothing else, it shows calmness, and calmness is interpreted often as prepared, confident, potentially having other options, all of those things. So I'm 100% in agreement with you. I may add, don't do the disappointed dad stare. Like, don't ask somebody a tough question and lock eye contact with them for the next 8 seconds while they're trying to come up with a conversation. That probably won't go well for you. But I agree 100% with what you're saying. And you mentioned kind of being in that sales mindset and moving. And I've got a question. We didn't talk about this one before, but I feel like in negotiation, if someone's going into a negotiation, hopefully they're solution oriented. There's a purpose for going into this. There's something that I want. There's hopefully something that they want. Let's figure out how to get to the wants. Coming from the interview and interrogation background, and especially for my former teammates and I, most of the time we didn't have evidence. There were multiple suspects. Everybody had already been interviewed. The deck stacked against us. But people are bringing us in to figure it out. And we didn't bat 1,000. We did consistently quite well. And so there was an expectation of success. So we weren't looking at that thinking, okay, well, I got nothing. I'm just going to sit down and see if this works. We were saying, okay, well, how do I turn this nothing into something? And how does that something create an opportunity? And how does that opportunity lead me to where I need to go? All of that leads me to say that it's been my perception, and I welcome your feedback on this, that so much of sales is a failure driven process. You have to call 100 in round numbers because I suck at math. You have to call 100 people to get 10 meetings, to
Mhm.
get three contracts, to get one deal. And so because people are going in with that, it's actually it's an exclusionary process. Most of these people are going to tell me no anyway, so let me see how quickly I can get them out of the system. Or because of that expectation of failure, this probably isn't going to work. They're probably not going to let me pass the gate. They're probably not going to give me this information. They're probably going to string me along. Because of those negative expectations, it short circuits the preparation process. It demotivates listening, especially in a problem solving or a solution creating moment or opportunity with professional buyers. So I'm curious with what you've seen again from being in sales and now being on the professional buying side. I know mindset is a lot of what you talk about and what you teach. From the sales perspective, do you how far off base am I? Do you see a failure based mindset negatively impacting and causing some of these missed opportunities?
Absolutely. And I'm very familiar with the sad dad stare, by the way. It doesn't always work for me. In fact, I don't even want to talk about negotiating with my daughters. I lose far too often. I um I agree with you. The best sales professionals are confident, not cocky, but confident. And I love to tell them in our negotiations that, Michael, I'm confident we'll find a solution here. I know we're working through some tough issues, but I know that we can make this work. Do you agree? And I try to elevate the conversation to increase collaboration. I get it. You just made 100 calls, had 10 demos, and now finally you're three meetings and two demonstrations in and this close to signing a new contract. And here's Ted, and he wants to talk about the implementation cycle, discounting, long-term price protections, and everything else. And you might just get frustrated. Um, this happened last month, getting on the call at the end of a contract negotiation, and I told the sellers, you have to do better on price. The reaction was physically moving around, they're swiveling in their chair, the head's rolling back. I can't make this up. It was rather comical, if not a little sad, but they were clearly agitated. And in that moment, based on their response, one, I knew that they were coming to this from a place of weakness and not control, that I would get additional concessions out of this conversation. And two, they weren't looking at this as a collaborative experience. They weren't asking more questions in that moment. Mindset is so, so important in this business. And I know a lot of us have that winner's mentality. I think to be in sales and do the work that we do, to put up with 99 no's, you've got to have a pretty strong character and a pretty strong drive. I get that. Don't forget that it's not done. The deal's not done until you've got signatures. So you need to prepare mentally for even those tough negotiations that come towards the end of the cycle.
And again, I would love your feedback on this. I feel like there's a real opportunity to either eliminate, short circuit, or prepare your response alternatives for these challenges that come at the end of the sales cycle during discovery.
Amen. Yeah.
And all too often, and this is the interviewer bias in me for sure. All too often during discovery, we find salespeople in the check the box mentality, right? How many end users? What's the current investment? How much can we save? How much faster will it be? Da 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 da. Because I'm just trying to make sure this shoe fits for you. Because if this shoe fits, you'll want to buy it, right? It's a lighter shoe, it's a faster shoe, it fits your foot. Let's hurry up, put it on your feet, and get you out the door. But down the line, And you know this better than me. Negotiators are going to use time as a tool. Maybe I'll draw it out a little bit. Maybe I'll compress time a little bit. Maybe I'll ask for questions at a time where it's more advantageous to me than it is for you. Or quite honestly, sometimes it's purely legit. You and I are on the same page. You take it to whoever you have to take it with in your organization. Somebody brings something to your attention that you didn't know about. And now legitimately you're bringing it back at an inconvenient time for me. And it wasn't a ploy or a trick. It's just how the process unfolds. But to get back to that walk me through the process question, now if during discovery we take this as I'm trying to build a puzzle, but I don't know what the picture is going to look like. So how many puzzle pieces can I create right now? Who loves to parachute into the conversation at the end? Who loves to meddle in the conversation? Based on lessons learned from the last three similar negotiations, what were the major sticking points at the end? What does this project set the organization up to do next? How does this deadline affect the next start line? So now we start building these things in through discovery. So when somebody at the end comes and says, we're going to need some price discounts, I appreciate you saying that. That's typically what happens at this stage of the ballpark. Let's go back to the conversation we had 2 weeks ago. And now we can redirect the conversation.
There's a bit about anchoring there in what you just said that I want to come back to because it's woefully misunderstood or underutilized tactic in negotiations. I love to talk about deal time engineering. It's
Let's do
something
it.
that enough of the best sales reps don't do, and it's costing them deal velocity. When you bring the buyer in early and you start having conversations about landmines in the way, potential stagnation points, and keep in mind, just because you haven't heard from me doesn't mean there isn't work being done on our side of the table, that we're getting alignment, that we're figuring in budgets, resources. But when we start to engineer the velocity, so imagine we're talking for the first time. Ted, I know that we've got a number of stakeholders here who want input on this. Can you and I agree ahead of time that no matter what we have going on, if one of us sends the other an email or a note or a check-in, we'll do our very best to respond in 48 hours. Can we agree on that so that we don't lose any momentum here? Great. Or whatever that time is. So now we're committed. We're creating our own SLAs, if you will. You can do the same with red lines. Listen, I'm going to send you over my pricing proposals. I'll let you have some time to digest, but I want to put some time on the calendar for us to debrief and tell me what you see so that you're engineering the velocity into the deal. You're not leaving timing up to chance. And the best sales reps work with their buyer to engineer that velocity. Absolutely. Because what I see happen all too often, I'm just going to say it, your best and final is bullshit.
Sure.
I've heard it more times than I can count from sales professionals who are trying to use that to create urgency,
Mm-hmm.
and it does not work. I don't care that it's your end of the week or the end of the month. I don't care that it's your end of the quarter. Maybe I'll get some warm fuzzies because it's your end of year or my end of year, but don't use best and final as a way to insert urgency. One way to insert urgency is to say, listen, I know that we've been talking now for 6 months and we've crafted a wonderful ROI and business case. We're almost there on legal. Let me tell you, if we're not able to get this signed by the end of the month, I worry that you will go to the back of the line in terms of implementation and resourcing because money is one thing, but time is finite. And all of my other customers that are getting signed up this month are going to receive immediate attention from our implementation team and our support team, whatever it may be. So there is urgency in people. And that's one of the ways that you can create urgency in addition to engineering the velocity into the conversation at the very earliest point.
All great points. And again, I think that can start in discovery.
Yes.
Because to your point, if I'm trying to get you to be urgent over something that I need, how's
Yeah.
that ever going to work?
Yeah.
But if I can tie this project into your next project, if I can tie this project into your overall strategic plan, if I can tie when you're hoping to get this one completed to start the next one, now I've got an opportunity to build in some urgency based on what's important to you, not what's important to me. And that resonate more. It's going to be more relevant to them. So great point there. You said you want to go back to anchoring. Before I take us away from that conversation and we end up forgetting it, let's go do that.
I will do an injustice if I try to rattle off the research on anchoring and its power. I suspect most of you who are listening know the power of anchoring. Let me just reiterate, it's true. The person that gets that number out there first is in a tremendous advantage. So I want to be able to be the first one to put a number out there, whether it's my budget or it's my sale price. Anchoring that conversation, that negotiation is a must. So don't necessarily wait for them to tell you how much they want to spend. Get that number on the table. That increases the value perception and it gives you a tremendous advantage in terms of leverage on those conversations. Now, on the flip side, if I say, my super duper AI SASE solution is $100,000. Michael, what do you think? Don't even breathe life into that number if you're the buyer. Don't let that number leave your lips. Immediately redirect. And you did this a few minutes ago and it was brilliant. Immediately redirect, whether it's back on that ROI conversation, the value, the time. Avoid being anchored by misdirection, by going in a different direction with that conversation. Do not even acknowledge that number.
That's a great point. And there's tons of ways to do that. From a
Yeah.
simple thank you for sharing that with me. That's great to know. I appreciate you letting me know this early on. Or sidestepping it. To use the boxing analogy, you just slip that punch, let it slide right by. You
Yeah,
don't need to
absolutely.
block it. You don't need to return fire. Just slip, let it go, reset, and keep the conversation. Just because somebody, I'm going to make an awfully broad statement here, but in this context specifically, just because somebody says something doesn't mean we need to address it.
Yes, 100%.
Just because they put it into the conversation doesn't mean, to use your words, we have to breathe life into it. And I think there's plenty of parrying we can do where we just push it aside and step forward, push it aside and step forward, push it aside and step forward, and we can stay on the
Mhm.
path that we are. You mentioned building urgencies around like the end of the month for me or whatever it might be. For me, it's backfired on me at least once. But I can think of many more times it's helped than actually backfired. That might be the only time I can think of that it's backfired me at least so far. Is that if somebody gives me a deadline, that deadline's bullshit.
Mhm.
If you're telling me that if I don't respond to you by X, then the offer changes, you can just put a note in your calendar that it's going to be 3 days after that before I respond to you. Now, depending on the situation, obviously that's not 100% true all the time. But as a genuine technique, if I'm not asking deadline is, if we're somewhere else in the conversation in the process, you're like, hey, just so you know, this offer is only good until X. Well, you'll be hearing from me after X, and I'll put
Mhm.
good money on me getting the same deal, if not better. Because to your point, from an interviewing perspective, that was unsolicited information. I didn't
Mhm.
ask for it and it didn't fit at that moment in time. So that's telling me that now you're trying to create artificial parameters to the conversation that are going to benefit you and harm me. Now, depending on the relationship and where we are and what we're doing, there's lots of contextual differences to consider. But if this is, we don't know each other, we're early in the stages, this is a new potential agreement or opportunity, you can bet your ass that I'll be following up with you after that deadline with a significant likelihood that I'm still going to get at least that deal or better because of how and when it was thrown out. So I'm 100% in line with what you're saying.
Yeah. You have to earn the right over weeks and months to bring a deadline into the negotiation. I get it. If we've been doing this for 9 months, it's been part of a complex RFP. It's a complex system, enterprise wide. And for one reason or another, we've been negotiating for 3 months now on some of the commercials, and it's coming up on your end of year. And you say to me, listen, Ted, we've been talking now for a while. I just want to let you know the numbers that we have on the table will change on January 1st. Okay, that's fair. I get it. We've both earned the right to level up the relationship to that. But if it's been a week or a couple weeks or a month, to your point, don't bring your urgency into my house.
No, because it's often read as desperation, and
Yeah.
which translates to blood in the water. And now I can be patient. And I would love your thoughts on this because I know you've talked a little bit about buyers can often have the upper hand and more often likely feel like they have the upper hand. I would guess, statistically speaking, buyers typically have more options than sellers. I know that's not always true. We can get into scarcity and opportunity and supply and demand and all these other things. Market conditions can change. I get it. But by and large, I would assume more often than not, buyers feel like they have more options than sellers. Unless the buyers got themselves in a pinch, they missed opportunities, they're up against a deadline, a very real problem. I need you now. More often than not, the buyers are planning ahead. They're talking to multiple people, they're weighing their options. And if a salesperson's made 100 calls and they've only got 10 meetings, they've got a lot less opportunity to make their commission than the buyer does to get what they perceive that they need.
Exactly. And that's not to say we don't get mandates that we have to have this solution or contract in place ASAP. That happens. I won't tell you that, but it happens. And so that's pressures on me that I'm not going to disclose. As a seller, you have to maintain control of your emotions and of the timeline, but don't ever try to impose that on the buyer because we do have that kind of leverage. We will immediately be doing the research on your competitors. Maybe the incumbent is doing 80% of the work and we're okay with that. Um, Maybe you are a premium product and you can charge a premium price. Great. Again, I don't want my stakeholders or my company buying inferior products or services. That doesn't help me out because we're then 3 months in, the implementation's off the rails. We've lost a lot of time and money, and nobody's happy with this. And then we have to go through the process again next year to find somebody else. I want them to be happy with what they've purchased, whether it's a software or service or anything in between, which is why you shouldn't, again, be quick to discount, but we can come back to that. But we do have options. Don't ever forget that at any stage in the negotiation, there always are BATNAs. And there are ways that you can kind of pressure test those BATNAs. Either side can, which is great. Don't forget to do that. But don't discount that the marketplace is more crowded than ever. There's more information available to me as a buyer than ever. And we'll do our research.
Yeah, and for people who are listening, if you're not familiar, BATNA is best alternative to a negotiated agreement, which is a wicked friggin' Ivy League way to say plan B or other options. So
Yeah.
thank you for coming up with a terribly complicated, intelligent sounding acronym for plan B. Now, that's really
Yeah.
what it comes down to.
Well, and most of us don't have a plan B half the time.
Yeah. In
We're
life,
just,
let alone in
right, right.
negotiations.
We're just flying by the seat of our pants. And if that Tickle Me Elmo is sold out at Target on the day after Thanksgiving, well, we're up a creek.
Yeah, and I remember when that was happening.
I
Uh,
appreciate you getting that reference, by the
Oh
way.
yeah, no, I absolutely remember that. Both my wife and I worked retail back in the day, so I have very clear memories.
Yeah, yeah.
Unfortunately, and I won't share the story because nobody cares, but I have full, clear memories of breaking up fistfights over $10 gift cards in a parking lot at 4 o'clock in the morning on a Black Friday. Retail used to be an entirely different monster
Yeah.
than it
Yeah.
is right now. But you mentioned don't discount too early, and I know one of the things that you like to talk about too is different opportunities opportunities to control the pricing conversation.
Mhm.
So as we start talking about these concepts of leverage and alternatives and buyers and sellers and preparation and stages and the importance of discovery to set all of this up when we eventually are going to need it, what are some of the techniques or methods that you've seen to be successful when it comes to controlling the pricing conversation?
Well, the simplest and the easiest to understand, and one that I think most sellers are already doing, and they're doing it because it works, is that martini glass discount process. My software is $100,000. I'm going to give you my biggest and best discount up front. All right, I don't normally do this, but we can bring you down to 90,000. I say, you're going to have to do better than that. Back and forth, back and forth. All right, fine. 85. So I've gone from a $10,000 discount or 10% down to a 5,000, and I'm in a bad mood. So I say, you know what, Michael, you've got to do better than that. So from 85, let's say you go down to 82.5. All right, so the percentage of discount decreases as the negotiation rounds go on. That protects your margins. That signals to me as a buyer that we're getting pretty damn close to that best and final, and that there isn't going to be room for the nibbling that we talked about earlier. The martini glass discount, I think, is highly effective. Not enough sellers actually do that. They're immediately coming out of the gates with, hey, here's a 35% discount off of retail. Great. What is retail? Nobody pays retail. If you're paying retail, shame on you, because nobody pays retail. What is that number? So we don't take the discounts with a lot, no, not with a grain of salt. We do take them with a grain of salt because it could be something completely different for me, for the next customer on the call list. So be careful when you're talking discounts. You need to know that I've already done the research. I know what your competitors are charging. Maybe I've gone and stalked G2 or Gartner to figure out what you've been charging other customers. So I know a range that you should probably be in. So you don't want to overinflate just for the sake of building in margin. So be careful there. But more than anything, when you talk about price, find out what I value and what my stakeholders value beyond price. Again, do we get your A team for implementation? Do we get that premier account manager that all my friends are talking about? Maybe we get them assigned to my account, and that means 3 years of wonderful white glove service, and that's worth something. Maybe we can cut in line in terms of the implementation timeline. So rather than taking 90 days, we could do implementation in 60. There are many other things that we can talk about that matter to me as a buyer than dollars and pennies.
And to circle back a little bit and retread on some previous ground, all those points are fantastic. Tease that out of them during discovery.
Mhm.
Because what happens is now in the negotiation at the end, you start hammering me for price. I'm like, well, hang on. I'll come down 5%, but I'll also
Mhm.
give you the best project manager and I'll see if I can cut the line and get you implemented earlier. And here's a few extra bells and whistles and blah, blah, blah. Now it sounds like I'm bartering at the end. These things may or may not be important to you. You might not really care. And you could also, as the buyer, be like, oh, what else can I tease out of him? If he's not going to give me much more money, which might be fine because I could already be in the window I'm authorized to pay, how can I still keep trying to tease better service, better opportunities, additional access, whatever it might be out of the situation? It's not an example on that level, but for many years, there was a beverage company that I used to do a lot of work with their sales team, and they were just giving away way too much swag. And this wasn't cheap. Giant coolers, expensive jackets, tickets to
Yeah.
events, like all this stuff. And we're finding out that often at the end of the negotiation, they're giving it away in order to preserve their price. I'm like, yo, you're getting beat on a price they were already willing to pay. If we
Yeah,
work this out earlier, you don't have to give all that stuff away. And now you're not eating at your marketing margin, which now the marketing team is coming down on because you don't see it as a sales problem, but it's actually
right.
a corporate problem. And one of the things that you mentioned there too, which to get back to the bigger picture, is having a good idea, whether it's through Gartner or somebody else, about what somebody is charging. I had a really unique opportunity years ago to work with a guy whose entire business now he's in the SaaS world, but the entire business was to help these SaaS organizations increase their business development efforts by creating consistency in their pricing. And
Yeah.
as I was working with him on framing some of the work that he does, he was showing me these graphs and these plot models on how pricing is all over the board. And not only does that make it difficult to forecast and it affects cash flow and all these other things that we can talk about operationally, it can kill your reputation in the market.
Hmm.
Because now, if I find out that you're giving heavy discounts over here, but I didn't get one, or you quoted me that even if I got down to a price I wanted, you quoted me so much higher than you quoted the other person, that inconsistency in offers, not only can it hurt operationally, but from an integrity standpoint and a perception standpoint. And if a sales person or a negotiator, buyer, whoever, if we are the point person in the conversation, we are the face of the organization. And if they question our integrity, they question the organization's integrity. And even if they agree to do the deal, they could be looking for any post agreement opportunity to point out a lack of integrity or mistake or something that they continue to hold over our head. So you mentioned that as kind of a, well, I might be doing this. But that's a very real thing that we should all be aware of, that we're representing our integrity, our organization's integrity, not just for the operational purposes, but for the relational purposes when we're out here in the field having these conversations.
Absolutely. And even beyond those formal benchmarking tools, and there's more and more on the marketplace today than ever. And if you're a well-known SaaS provider, for example, you should know that there are companies out there telling me average discounting rates for your customers. And if you're especially well known, I know exactly down to the penny what you're typically charging for each SKU. The the other part of this are just our networks, right? Any significant purchase, I'm going to ask for references. And yes, you're going to trot out your best customers who are going to say nice things about you. But I'm going to ask about costs. And have they ever surprised you with any upcharges or ancillary fees? Did they hit their deliverable timelines? And then I'm probably going to ask my network or our C-suite's network what they know about you and what were the average rates. So to your point, yes, the consistency in pricing is a very real issue in the SaaS industry. And I know that companies are taking that very seriously in an effort to normalize those. Because if I know that you're charging somebody else a fraction of what you put on the table for me, there goes your credibility and we're in for a long negotiation.
Yeah. If I have another option, I might just take it. But if I
Yeah,
don't have another option, or I really believe you do have the best product, it's the
yeah,
actual product I want. Now I have the complete justification and rationalization to go for your throat.
yeah,
Might not be what I wanted to do, but brother, you put me in this position and I'm going to feel really good doing it because I feel like you threw the first punch. So now here I come. There's no such thing as an equal and opposite reaction in interpersonal communication. There's always an escalated reaction. I shouldn't say always. More often than not, there's an escalated reaction. I do something, you
yeah.
escalate because you escalated. I escalate because I escalate. You escalate. And now this whole thing has fallen to pieces when it never, ever had to.
Let me tell you about the conversation I had with my wife this morning over Christmas presents. Uh, yes, I know how that works very acutely.
Oops.
But,
Un-
in terms of what you're getting at in terms of the nibbling, don't let it happen. The best sales reps are saying to me, all right, Ted, well, first of all, there's always a barter. There's an if we do this, can you do that? If I'm able to get you our absolute premier support, can you commit to giving me a turn on the MSA and DPA by the end of the week? Or whatever it is. You
Sure.
never give without getting. But to your point, tease all of that out early. Ted, okay, if we go get this for you, is this the final ask? If I get this, we'll get the deal done today. Because if I'm going to stick my neck out, if I'm going to cash in all of my political points with my CRO, I want to know that you and your team are ready to commit, not weeks or months from now, but by the end of the week. And then you've preempted the nibbling. Because two things I love nibbling on. One is pizza, specifically deep dish, Lou Malnati's. The other are deals. All right. I will exhaust the options to make sure that we extract the most value from a contract. And that might mean waiting until we get everything else on the table, knowing that there's a sunk cost fallacy, if you will,
Hmm.
so that we're at the end of the road. You just want to get this done. And I come to you and I say, oh, by the way, I want to make sure we've got a price cap in 3 years. Are you going to let the deal walk away because you can't get me that price cap? So if I did that to you, don't be afraid to call it out, right? Ted, listen, we've been at this now for a long time, and I appreciate your attempts at nibbling, but we're not going to do that. Just call it out. Just call it out and diffuse it and move on.
I love that. And one of my favorite ways to do it is say, I understand that's your job. I understand that's how the game is played. I understand that's what people are supposed to do.
Right.
That's in the textbook. That's how it's supposed to happen. I get it. So now it's like it doesn't turn into that. Did you just try to screw me over? And
Mhm.
now it's that. Well, wait, whoa, 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 whoa. Either I've got two choices, right? I can double down or I can apologize, and neither one is going to be helpful. So I just like to brush it off the table. Hey, man, that's how the game's played. I get it. Cool. Here. And now here's the alternative.
Yeah.
Here's the answer, whatever it's going to be. And you said two synonyms. I gotta remember my grammatical words today. Anticipate and preempt.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so many of the problems we run into can be eliminated slash mitigated with great anticipation and preempting them. And
Yeah.
coming from the world of interview and interrogation, oftentimes we had to do that. We didn't have a choice. If we missed that, we were in a deeper hole and we had bigger challenges. And often how we tried to preempt things could be a real tell. Their reaction could be a clue. I shouldn't say a tell, that word gets misrepresented. Could be a clue as to somebody's potential involvement in the situation. Victim, witness, suspect, not involved at
Yeah.
all, just based on how they respond to something that we preempted earlier on in the conversation. So it's an educational moment for us. But that anticipation process is so, so, so important. And I think loops back to all of the things that we've talked about. When I was getting ready for the conversation, I know we're close on time and we have to wrap this up. I think I came across a 7-step planning method that you preach, and we've probably already hit on a lot of these as we've talked through. Are there a few like keystones of planning that you want to make sure we share to wrap this conversation up and bring it full circle?
Absolutely. And we touched on it at the top, and that's listening. We practice, we plan for objections. That's just embedded in any sales training and enablement training that we do. Don't ignore it, plan for it, practice it. At the same time, know when to dodge, know when to just silence, and you don't have to react to every objection. Objection is my point. So practice, rehearse, know when to just stay silent and listen. Bring the buyer in as early as possible. Ask, ask to bring them in. You know what I enjoy more than anything is when I'm on the very second call. Listen, I can't control what thousands of my coworkers are doing and who they're talking to. But if as a sales professional, you say to them, listen, had a couple conversations. It sounds like this is going to be a really great fit, and I know you want to move this forward. Do you have a professional buying team there that I should talk to so I can make this as smooth as possible? Awesome. If I hear that you asked to bring me in, talk about building rapport. 100%. So ask to bring in that buyer early so that you can unlock the velocity and the secrets to that purchasing process. And at the end of the day, make me your champion. Make me your champion. When I get to be in those demos and I see that my stakeholders are excited about your product or service, the teams are gelling, there's a lot of excitement. I can tell that you get us and you are a thought leader in the industry. I'm more able to advocate for you with our leadership, with the CFO, the CIO, whoever that might be. And that, again, gives you another champion over here to help navigate the purchase process. So look for areas to make that buyer your champion. You can do that. You can absolutely do that because I want to believe in what we're buying and what we're sourcing because that's good for everybody. It really is. We've got a problem. You've got a solution. Let's get together.
Yeah, let's make it work.
Yeah.
I think that's a great way to wrap this up. Again, thank you for taking the time. I want to be very respectful of your schedule. I've been taking notes as you've been talking. Every time I look down, I promise I'm not ignoring you. I've been writing. So for the people who are listening and taking notes as well, and they want to stay connected to you and they want to continue to learn from you, where should they go?
I'm on the socials at LinkedIn. I'm also at tedstephany.com. You can find out more about the programs and workshops that I offer, the keynotes that are available, and just send me an email or a LinkedIn message. Happy to talk to you about the deals that you have going on in your life.
Awesome. And I'll make sure all those links are in the show notes so people do not have to go hunting for them.
Love it.
Man, it's been great meeting you. It's been great having a conversation with you. I can't wait to stay connected and hopefully do this again down the road. Thank you so much for sharing your time. And hey, stay warm up there.
I appreciate that, Michael. It's been my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Take care. We'll talk to you soon. Ted, thank you for a fantastic conversation. I truly appreciate you sharing your time and all of your expertise and experience. You shared so many great ideas. A few that I really want to highlight. Number one, the value of anticipation. Like all too often, we run into things that we could have seen coming or things that we could have had a plan for. How do we stop to think about it in advance? So the importance of anticipation, I agree, is so critical. I also think it's so important to talk about the process early. I really like how you brought that up, setting the expectations, clarity, not only for rapport and negotiation purposes, but also for our own planning and preparation purposes. And I love how you said, don't react to every objection. Every objection doesn't require a reaction. In fact, many of them probably don't. So a great thought and another way to look at staying calm, focused, and productive during a negotiation. Don't react to every objection. It was a great conversation, Ted. Thank you so very much. And thank you to everyone that took the time to join us this week. Hopefully you were taking notes and finding those valuable nuggets for you throughout the conversation as well. We really appreciate you being here for another week. Before you go, we'd be grateful if you took a quick second to like the show, share it with your network, subscribe to the show, and of course, please leave us your feedback. We truly would love to hear from you. And we thank you for checking out our sponsors as well. You can head over to humantel.com, enter the code INQUASIVE25, and get 25% off the best in-class online training of your choice to begin developing the skill set necessarily to accurately understand when people's emotions are shifting by recognizing changes in their facial expressions and nonverbal communications. All that's over at humantel.com. For the professional interviewers, please head over to certifiedinterviewer.com. That's where you can get all your questions answered and learn everything you need to know about both the International Association of Interviewers and the Certified Forensic Interviewer designation. It's all there at certifiedinterviewer.com. And finally, thank you for checking out inquasive.com. That's where you can learn more about the programs our clients ask us to custom facilitate for their senior leaders, HR teams, sales teams, and more to teach them how to structure conversations, observe and influence in order to uncover hidden value in all of their high impact conversations. We really appreciate you being here week after week. Thank you so very much. Please stay safe, take care of each other, and we'll see you next time.